Rain slashed sideways through the dark city streets as thunder cracked overhead. A young woman, still in her wedding gown, sat trembling on a rusted park bench, mascara streaking her cheeks like bruises. The bouquet lay shattered at her feet, white roses trampled into the mud. Her veil clung to her shoulders, soaked and heavy like her breath. Across the street, a teenage boy with a tattered hoodie and scraped-up shoes stood frozen, half hidden behind a lamppost. He was used to broken things, but this was new. She looked like someone who had everything, except right now she looked like someone who had lost it all. For a long moment, they just stared at each other through the curtain of rain. Then he crossed the street. No umbrella. No words. Just the sound of his sneakers squishing in the water. She flinched as he got close, but he only bent down and gently picked up her bouquet. He held it out like a question. Like a promise. Like maybe, just maybe, two broken strangers could mean something to each other. She didn't take the flowers at first. Just stared. As if the gesture was too surreal to be real. The boy stood still, hands out, bouquet wilting more by the second. He said nothing. Didn't flinch. His eyes, tired, hollow but kind, spoke louder than words. After what felt like forever, she slowly reached out, fingers brushing his. Her touch was cold, almost weightless. When she finally took the bouquet, she whispered, "Why?" He shrugged. "You looked like you needed someone." That broke her. The sob tore from her chest like something long buried. She dropped her head and cried, bouquet clutched like a lifeline. The boy sat beside her, not touching, just there. And for the first time that day, she didn't feel completely alone. Minutes passed with only rain as their conversation. She finally said, "I left him. At the altar." Her voice cracked mid-sentence. The boy looked at her, surprised but not judging. "Why?" he asked. She exhaled, long and heavy. "Because I didn't love him. And he didn't love me. It was all fake. For the families. For appearances." Her hand wiped her face, smearing makeup further. "I kept walking until I couldn't anymore." The boy nodded. "Better than living a lie." She looked at him, searching. "What about you? Why are you out here?" He shrugged again, eyes distant. Nowhere else to go. It hung there between them, truth too heavy for comfort. But it was shared, and that made it bearable. He stood suddenly. "Wait here," he said. She blinked at him, confused. "Why?" But he was already moving, jogging off into the night, water flying from his heels. She almost called out after him, but stopped herself. Minutes dragged. She stared at the soaked bouquet in her lap, doubting everything again. Then he returned, carrying a hot coffee and a tattered plastic bag. "Found a gas station," he said, handing her the drink. She took it with shaking hands, warmth bleeding into her fingers. From the bag, he pulled a dry hoodie. "It's old, but dry." Her lips quivered. "Why are you helping me?" The boy smiled, just a little. "Because someone should have helped me when I needed it. No one did." She pulled the hoodie over her dress. It hung awkwardly, sleeves too long, shoulders too wide. But it was warm, and for that moment, it was everything. The coffee scalded her mouth, but she didn't stop sipping. They sat in silence again, the storm softening around them. Then she said, "What's your name?" He hesitated. "Eli." She nodded. "I'm Claire." Their names floated in the space like anchors. She looked down at her stained dress, then at the soaked bouquet. "I think I just ran from the only life I knew." Eli looked at her. "Maybe that's the first step toward the one you're meant for." And as thunder rolled far off, she realized he might be right. Morning broke slow and gray. The storm had passed, but the city remained soaked in silence. Claire sat hunched on the same bench, Eli curled at the far edge, arms crossed, head bowed like a bird protecting itself from the world. Her dress was stained, shoes lost to the night, but she hadn't moved. Not really. Just breathed. Just existed. She glanced at Eli, who stirred under the rising light. "Did you sleep?" she asked. He opened one eye. "Sort of. You?" She shook her head. "Didn't want to close my eyes." Eli stretched, joints cracking. "Bad dreams?" "No," Claire said, voice barely audible. "Just afraid I'd wake up and still be her. The bride." Eli nodded like he understood something deeper. "You're not her anymore." Claire let those words sit. Let them try to heal. "You got anywhere to go?" she asked. He smirked. "If I did, I wouldn't be sleeping on benches." They left the park slowly, like ghosts unsure of their place in daylight. Claire's bare feet slapped the wet sidewalk, dress dragging behind like a forgotten memory. Eli walked beside her, quiet, protective in a way that didn't announce itself. "Where are we going?" she asked. "There's a church a few blocks down," he said. "Sometimes they leave the basement door open, warm enough, safer than the street." Claire didn't ask how he knew. The kind of knowledge no one should ever need to know. "What about food?" she asked. Eli's jaw clenched. "Sometimes they have day-old donuts, coffee if we're lucky." Claire nodded. "Guess we're not too different after all." Eli looked at her, eyebrows raised. "Except one of us still has a dress worth more than everything I've ever owned." She laughed. Sudden, sharp. "It's yours if you want it." The church was old, its red bricks stained with decades of rain and sorrow. Eli rapped twice on the rusted basement door, then pulled it open with a creak that echoed down the alley. Inside it was dim but dry, the air musty with old wood and silent prayers. Claire hesitated before entering. "You sure this is okay?" Eli shrugged. "They don't mind as long as you leave before sunrise service." She stepped inside, barefoot on cold cement. Folded blankets in a milk crate, a couple of crates as chairs, and a flickering battery lantern made up the shelter. "Welcome to the penthouse," Eli said with mock grandeur. Claire smiled faintly. "It's warmer than the bench." She sat, pulling the hoodie tighter. Eli tossed her a wrapped granola bar. "Dinner." She unwrapped it slowly, tearing a corner off. Then handed him half. "Split it with me." He looked surprised. "You don't have to." Claire said, "Yeah, I do." Later, lying side by side but not touching, Claire stared at the ceiling's water stains. "How long have you been out here?" she whispered. Eli's voice came slow. 3 years. "Since I was 14, parents?" she asked. "Gone. One dead, one drunk. Didn't notice when I stopped showing up." Claire swallowed. "I had everything, or I thought I did. Family, money, a future. But it all felt fake." Eli was quiet. "Then, fake love can hurt more than no love at all." She turned to face him. His eyes glistened, fixed on the dark. "You ever want to go back?" she asked. "Not to that," he said. "Maybe to a time before it got so broken." Claire nodded. "Me too." They didn't say anything else. Silence became their shelter. Claire woke to the faint smell of burnt toast and footsteps above. It was morning, real morning, and sunlight bled through the cracks in the floorboards. Eli was already up, packing their few items into his backpack. "Time to go," he said. She sat up slowly, brushing hair from her face. "Where to now?" He hesitated. "There's a soup kitchen on 8th. They won't ask questions. Then we figure it out." Claire nodded. She glanced at her reflection in a cracked piece of mirror propped in the corner. A bride no more. Just a girl trying to start over. She stepped into the light with bare feet and scars. "Let's go," she said. Eli opened the door, sunlight flooding in. For the first time, it didn't hurt to walk toward the unknown. The soup kitchen was tucked between a pawn shop and a boarded-up bakery, its windows fogged from the inside. Claire followed Eli through the crowd of worn faces and heavy jackets. Volunteers moved with practiced rhythm, handing out trays, nodding greetings. Eli grabbed 2 plates, motioned to a bench near the back. Claire sat, studying the room. People talked, laughed even, but all of it muted, like life on a dimmer switch. "You know all of them?" she asked. Eli shook his head. "Not names, but you start recognizing stories. Same bruises, same hunger." Claire took a bite of the watery stew. "Do they know yours?" Eli shrugged. "Doesn't matter. They're just trying to survive." Claire looked around, realizing how invisible she'd been in her own life, how loud silence could be when no one knew your name. After lunch, Claire offered to help wash dishes. A kind-faced woman named Rosa handed her an apron. Eli stayed nearby, watching from a folding chair near the exit. Claire worked silently, scrubbing trays with more energy than required, like she could cleanse the life she'd left behind. Rosa finally asked, "You new around here?" Claire hesitated, then nodded. "Ran from a wedding," she said with a dry smile. Rosa chuckled softly. "I ran from a war once. Pain don't care what it's dressed in." Claire blinked, then smiled wider. "You always say stuff like that?" Rosa grinned. "Only to people who listen." As Claire rinsed the last tray, she looked over at Eli. For the first time he wasn't watching the door. He was watching her. And for a second, he smiled. They wandered for hours afterward, exploring forgotten corners of the city. Eli showed her a graffiti-covered tunnel where street artists painted in silence, and a rooftop view where the skyline shimmered like it belonged to someone else. "Why show me this?" Claire asked, breathless from the climb. Eli looked at the horizon. "Because it's what saved me. When things felt too heavy, I'd come here. Remind myself the world was still big." Claire looked at him. "You ever think about going back? School? Work?" Eli's face darkened. "You need an address for that. Papers. A pass." Claire nodded, her heart sinking. "Then we start small," she said. "A name. A story. A place to begin." He looked at her, hope flickering behind tired eyes. "You think that's enough?" "It has to be," she replied. That night, they tried to sleep in an abandoned construction site, an unfinished building with concrete walls and a tarp roof. Claire used Eli's backpack as a pillow. She kept her eyes closed, but her mind raced. Eli sat upright, fingers drumming his knees. "What if this is all we ever have?" he asked suddenly. Claire opened her eyes. "Then we make it count." "But what if it's not enough?" Eli whispered. "What if no one ever gives us more?" Claire sat up beside him. "Then we take it, piece by piece. Day by day." Eli looked at her, shadows carving lines into his young face. "You talk like someone who's lost everything." Claire smiled. "I have, and somehow, I'm still breathing." For a long time, they said nothing. Just listened to the wind rattle through unfinished wall. The next morning, Claire found Eli already gone. Panic surged. She stood, scanning the open site. Then she saw him outside across the street, staring at a pawn shop window. She ran over, heart pounding. "What are you doing?" Eli didn't look away. "That's my mom's necklace. I sold it years ago. Thought I'd never see it again." Claire stepped closer. "Do you want it back?" He shook his head. "I want to remember who I was before I had to give it up." Claire stared at the simple silver chain on display. "We can get it," she said. "Eventually." Eli's voice cracked. "I don't need it. I just needed to see it." Then he turned to her. "You helped me remember I still matter." Claire reached out and took his hand. "You always did." They found a library downtown, quiet and half-forgotten, with soft carpet and the hum of old air vents. Eli hadn't been in one for years. Claire led him in, scanning shelves like they were sacred. "You like to read?" he asked. She smiled. "I used to, when I wasn't being told what to be." They settled at a corner table, flipping through pages of possibility. Eli watched her fingers trace spines like memories. Then, a voice behind them, "Claire." She froze. Eli turned to see a well-dressed man in his 30s, eyes wide, voice shaking. "Claire Madison, We've been looking everywhere. Claire stood slowly. Michael? The man stepped closer. Your father sent people. You just vanished. Claire backed away. I needed to. Eli rose, tension sharp in his jaw. Who is he? Claire whispered. My ex-fiancé's brother. Michael stepped forward, eyes flicking to Eli with suspicion. You ran out in front of everyone, Claire. The police thought maybe. She cut him off. Maybe I was kidnapped. No, I chose to leave. Michael's voice lowered. Your father's been losing his mind. He's offering money for anyone who finds you. Claire's heart thudded. Eli moved closer. She's not property, he said. Michael's eyes narrowed. And who are you? Her new project? Claire stepped between them. He's the only one who didn't try to own me. Michael's tone sharpened. You think this is noble? You're sleeping in alleys, living with strangers. Claire nodded. And for once, I'm alive. Michael's voice cracked. You're making a mistake. No, Claire said, firm and steady. I finally stopped making one. Michael handed her a business card. When you're ready to stop pretending. Then he left, footsteps fading like a ghost. Claire sank into the chair. Eli sat beside her, silent. He thinks I'm just acting out, she whispered. That I'll crawl back when it gets hard. Eli nodded slowly. Will you? She looked at him, eyes rimmed red. I thought I might. Until now. Eli exhaled. You don't owe anyone your life. Claire clutched the card, then dropped it into a trash bin. I spent years trying to be perfect. Now I just want to be real. Eli smiled faintly. You already are. She glanced around the quiet library, heart pounding. But what if I can't survive out here? Eli said. Then we survive together. That night, they returned to the construction site, but something was wrong. The place had been trashed. Their blankets scattered, the few belongings Eli owned. Gone. A spray-painted warning marked the wall. No squatters. Eli stared, fists clenched. They found us. Claire stepped back, stunned. All of it. Gone. Eli nodded slowly. This happens. Always does. Claire's eyes welled up. We had nothing, and they still took it. Eli dropped to his knees, picking up a shredded backpack strap. It's not about the stuff, he said. It's the message. Claire whispered. Then they don't get to win. Eli looked up. What do we do? Claire stood taller. We build. We find another place. A better one. For the first time, her voice didn't tremble. They walked until their legs ached, dawn creeping in as the city yawned awake. Finally, near an underpass thick with vines and murals, Eli spotted an old railcar, abandoned but intact. It's dry, he said. Claire climbed in first, heart racing. Inside it smelled of rust and old leaves, but it was clean enough to rest. Eli joined her, sliding the door shut behind. We can't stay long, he said. But it'll do. Claire leaned against the wall, exhausted. I don't want to run forever. Eli replied. Then we fight. How? She asked. Eli thought a moment. We find help. Tell our stories. Build something real. Claire nodded. And maybe help someone else like you helped me. Eli looked at her and smiled. We help each other now. The next morning, Claire walked into a local community center while Eli waited outside. She returned 10 minutes later, face flushed. They offer housing support, counseling, even job placement. Eli blinked. You signed up. Claire nodded. For both of us. Eli stepped back. Claire, I don't do charity. She grabbed his wrist gently. It's not charity, it's help. And we can't keep surviving, barely. Eli looked away, torn. People like me, they don't get out. Claire's voice trembled. Then we rewrite that story. He studied her face, the stubborn light in her eyes. After a pause, he nodded. Okay, one try. She smiled, tears gathering. One's all we need. The counselor, a middle-aged woman named Nadine, spoke gently. We don't ask for your past. We ask what you want for your future. Eli hesitated, eyes flicking toward Claire. I want to stop hiding. Nadine nodded. That's a start. They were given temporary beds in a shared shelter. Clean clothes. Showers. Claire sat brushing her hair with a donated comb, staring at her reflection in a foggy mirror. It's weird, she said, to feel human again. Eli came out wearing a slightly too big flannel shirt. You always were. Claire smiled. You're not too bad cleaned up. He grinned. Don't get used to it. But deep down, both knew something had changed. Days passed. Claire helped at the shelter, learning intake forms and basic admin. Eli started sweeping floors and fixing broken things. One night as they walked back from a late shift, Claire asked, Do you think this lasts? Eli shrugged. I don't know, but it's more than I've had. She nodded. Feels like a beginning. As they turned the corner, a voice called out. Claire. Her father. He stood across the street, tie loosened, eyes wild. Come home. We'll forget all of this. Claire froze. Dad. Eli reached for her hand. You okay? Her father stepped forward. You don't belong here. This isn't you. Claire stepped back. This is the first time I felt like me. Claire's father stepped into the road. I'll make it right. Money. A clean slate. We'll say it was stress. Claire shook her head. It wasn't stress. It was clarity. His voice hardened. This isn't who you are. Eli spoke up, calm but firm. You don't get to decide that. Claire looked between them. I'm not a bride, not a daughter doing what she's told. I'm me. And I choose this. Her father's jaw tensed. You're throwing away your future. Claire turned, walking back toward the shelter. No, I'm walking into it. Eli followed, steps matching hers. Her father didn't chase her this time. Back at the shelter, Claire sat by the window, staring at the night. Eli joined her with 2 cups of tea. You did it, he said. She looked at him. We did it. He took a sip. What now? Claire turned toward him. Now we build, whatever that means, together. Eli studied her. You're not scared anymore? She thought a moment. No. I'm still scared. But it doesn't control me now. Eli nodded. Then we both found something. Claire reached out and laced her fingers through his. Home's not a place, she whispered. It's who stays when things fall apart. Eli whispered back, then I'm not going anywhere. Weeks turned into months. Eli and Claire began piecing together a life, slow, imperfect, real. Eli enrolled in GED prep through the shelter's outreach. Claire found part-time work at a thrift shop. They saved what little they had. Every cent folded into a coffee can beneath their shared bunk. One evening, Claire returned holding a flyer. There's a housing program. Transitional apartments. We could apply. Eli scanned it, nervous. You think we'd get it? We can try, she said. That's how everything starts. Eli nodded, eyes wide with the kind of fear that only hope brings. Let's try. And for once, neither of them looked back. Their application was accepted. 2 weeks later, they stood outside a faded brick apartment complex, keys dangling from Claire's fingers. It's not much, Eli murmured. It's ours, she whispered. The apartment was small, 1 room, peeling wallpaper, a creaky stove. But it smelled like new beginnings. They unpacked their few things, 2 mugs, a thrifted lamp, and a small plant Claire named Grace. That first night, they lay on the floor under a donated blanket, the city humming outside their window. We're not who we were, Claire said softly. Eli replied, but we're who we're meant to be. In the quiet, that sounded like truth. Claire returned to the community center one morning not for help, but to volunteer. She filed forms with steady hands, offered tea to newcomers, and sat with a young runaway girl who reminded her of herself. "It doesn't stay this way," she promised the girl. "You just have to hold on." Meanwhile, Eli started tutoring younger kids who had dropped out. He showed them how to fix small electronics, build things with their hands. One boy asked, "You live in a real place now?" Eli smiled. "Yeah, took a while." Claire watched him from the doorway, pride warming her chest. They weren't saving the world, but they were giving back what was once denied. One evening, they walked past the park where they first met. The same bench sat empty beneath the same street lamp. Claire paused. "Feels like a lifetime ago." Eli nodded. "I was invisible that night. You saw me." Claire looked at him, tears threatening. "You saved me, just by showing up." Eli smiled. "We saved each other." She pulled a rose from her coat pocket, a white one. She laid it gently on the bench. "For the version of me who almost didn't make it," she whispered. Eli added, "And the boy who thought he didn't matter." They stood there in silence, hand in hand, beneath the orange glow, honoring the ghosts they left behind. Later that night, back in their small apartment, they cooked pasta on the stove that whined when it boiled. Claire poured sauce from a thrifted pan. Eli set 2 mismatched plates. They sat on the floor, legs touching, laughter easy now. "You realize," Eli said, twirling noodles, "you're the runaway bride who built a life from scratch." Claire grinned. "And you're the kid who turned a park bench into a rescue mission." They raised their glasses, tapped water and chipped mugs. "To second chances," Claire said. Eli added, "To the family we choose." And as they clinked glass to glass, rain began tapping on the windows. But this time it didn't sound like loss. It sounded like peace. Claire walked through the city alone for the first time since that stormy night. It wasn't out of fear now, but strength. She passed the boutique where her wedding dress once hung, pristine and untouched. Inside, a new bride twirled in satin under the lights, her face glowing with certainty Claire once pretended to have. Claire didn't stop, didn't stare, just walked on, a soft smile on her face. She wasn't angry at who she used to be, just grateful she wasn't her anymore. Her phone buzzed. A message from Eli, "Dinner's almost done. Hope you're hungry." She texted back, "Starving," and thankful. Then she slid the phone into her pocket and kept walking, back toward something she chose. Eli stood at the stove, apron tied clumsily around his waist, stirring sauce with intense focus. The radio played an old soul song, the kind that made the world feel slower. Claire entered quietly, setting down a bag of groceries. "You're domestic now?" she teased. Eli chuckled. "Careful, I might start knitting." She walked up behind him, resting her chin on his shoulder. "Smells amazing. It's edible. That's enough for me." They sat down at the tiny table, candle flickering between them, pasta steaming on their plates. "You ever think about where we'd be if that night hadn't happened?" Claire asked. Eli nodded. "I'd still be a ghost," she whispered, "and I'd still be running." Later, they lay curled together on a futon beside the window, city lights twinkling like distant stars. "You think it'll always be this fragile?" Eli asked. Claire thought for a long moment. "Maybe, but fragile things can still be beautiful." He nodded against her shoulder. "Even broken things?" "Especially broken things," she said. "They know how to hold on." Outside, rain returned, gentle this time, more whisper than scream. It wrapped around the city like a lullaby. Claire closed her eyes. She'd lost a wedding, a family, a version of herself that never felt real. But in its place, she'd found truth. Not clean or easy, but hers. Weeks later, Claire stood on a modest stage at the community center, speaking to a small group of girls from the shelter. "You're not your mistakes," she said, voice steady. "You're not what they left behind." In the crowd, Eli watched with a proud, quiet smile. Claire held a small worn veil in her hands. "This used to mean I was supposed to be perfect. Now, it reminds me I survived." She folded it, set it down on the table beside her. You don't have to be who the world expects. You get to choose. As she stepped down, the girls clapped, some crying, some just breathing easier. Eli met her halfway, whispering, "You're becoming something powerful." Claire answered, "I already was, I just forgot." That night, as they sat in their apartment, Eli handed Claire a small box. Inside, a simple chain, silver, delicate, familiar. "I bought it back," he said softly. The pawnshop still had it. Claire touched it, heart swelling. "Your mother's necklace." Eli nodded. It felt like a piece of her, of me. Claire helped him clasp it around his neck, then leaned her head against his. "You gave me everything I didn't know I needed," she whispered. Eli replied, "You gave me back my name." For a long moment, they said nothing. The city hummed. The future waited. And two people who'd once been broken sat whole in a room made of second chances.